Back to the Real Estate Excellence Podcast. A great guest today. She is considered one of the top agents in Jacksonville. She works with one of the largest brokers in Northeast Florida, Watson Realty, who ranked her number 12 in 2023. She was recognized by the Jacksonville Business Journal as one of the top agents in Northeast Florida. Today, we'll find out what makes this amazing agent tick. Let's welcome Cassandra Shober to the show.
Hey, thank you so much for having me today. I'm really excited to be here.
Yeah, I appreciate you coming down and hear your story. As everyone knows, I comb through everyone's social media before they come on. So if I ask a question, it came because you've already posted it somewhere or put it on LinkedIn, one of the others. I do want to reach out early today because I generally, I've been forgetting here early in the show, a little bit of sponsorship here from Remy Graphics, and everyone can see that in the show. These nice laser engraved mugs. They do laser engraved. They got my logo on the other side in that bag that was on the chair there with you. You have a mug in there for yourself from the show set aside there. But Remy Graphics, they will do one-offs. So I think what's great is if you've got a customer, you got a closing, and you want them to have one or two mugs, she'll have those made for you. Or the other gifts that they have, and I put RemyGraphics.com. They have other gifts other than the mugs. So if you're thinking of something else, go on the site, and she'll whip those right off. And Remy Graphics is local. So. All right.
Support your local business.
That's exactly. Cassandra, as I always kick off, you're not from Jacksonville.
I am not originally, no.
You grew up where Arnold Palmer's from.
I didn't even think of that.
Yes, I thought about that this morning. Lancaster, Pennsylvania.
Lancaster, Pennsylvania, yes.
Tell us about that, and you'll go a little bit into your I was reading your bio. Your family was, your mom was involved in banking.
Yes, big time.
And dad was in the construction housing type industry. And, tell us what it was like growing up in Lancaster.
Well, growing up in Lancaster, so very Amish community, farming, agriculture, and a lot of construction based upon the growth that happens in Pennsylvania, given large families because of the farming industry.
Right.
So my mother has a banking background. She was a regional vice president of Sovereign Bank. I believe Sovereign was bought out by Santander.
Okay.
All right. And that's a big...
I've heard that name.
Yes. So that's a big bank. So I grew up watching my mom. She literally worked her way up from a bank teller in the window at the drive-through all the way up to becoming a regional vice president. So I watched her just grow in that type of industry. And then I watched my father, who was, really big into building things, just build houses left and right. So it's kind of like I was groomed for this, groomed for real estate. And I do have a banking background as well. Yeah. To me, it was a little boring.
Well, because I was reading a little bit of your bio, and obviously, if you can fill in between the lines a little bit, you at 18, 19, 20 years old, I mean, what were you thinking of as a career?
As a career, I really wanted to get into nursing because back when I was in school and in college, nursing was a really, really big industry. And it just wasn't my thing. So everybody encouraged me to get into real estate, just given the fact of my background and my experience and growing up with my family and those things.
Well, I think a lot, a theory I've always had for a long time, and I probably gained it when I was in college. A lot of us follow that, what we've seen around us, right?
Correct.
To me, education, my aunt, my grandmother were both educators. So, after thinking I wanted to be an engineer, and realizing, the classes you got to take for that, the upper chemistry and stuff, there was just too much for what I was doing. That I fell back to education, figuring, that I would enjoy that. Now, I only taught really 1 year, and that wasn't even the year after I graduated. I went back to it in between jobs later. But we look for those things because they're in front of you. Your mom's in front of you. You see what she's like, I can do that. Yeah. And then how long did you spend in the banking?
Banking, I think it was almost 2 years, and I sat in a little cubicle and I stared at the back of an ATM machine. So it was fun. It was exciting. It gave me a lot of experience when it comes to understanding how mortgages work, how customers think, how buyers think. So the experience was excellent. It wasn't my thing, though. It was slightly boring.
Well, that's what I really want to dig out of you from that standpoint, because how you've taken it to the real estate world. Because obviously, I've had several people on that have had mortgage experience before going into real estate, and again, I've been in this business almost 19 years.
Right.
Having worked at Quicken Loans and Loan Depot, both in their call centers for the first 12 years of my career, taking on a lot of applications. I've talked to a lot of different people, and some agents are they're scared to have just kind of even the basic surface level. Even like, where's your money coming from?
Right. Yeah.
Questions like that, or just saying, hey, we might have a client, or especially a new home buyer, first time home buyer. Hey, where's your credit at? Do we need to work on that? Having those kind of confidence to ask those questions.
And some of that just lies in knowing how to proceed forward with those questions. So when we start talking about numbers and financing, we first, what do you do for a living? Then we have this conversation. Oh, I bet you make and then it leads one thing to another another. So it's kind of like you make the person feel comfortable, and then they start to open up themselves.
Yeah, and then just in the general conversations you're having as an agent,
yes,
you hear them say stuff, and you're like, red flag. All right, we need to dig deeper into that.
Yes, we do. Yes, all the time.
We need to we need to make sure that's not going to be
let me connect you with somebody here.
Yeah, exactly. All right, so. You're in the banking, but Dad's business is growing from what I'm reading in your bio, right?
Yes.
His construction business, and he actually starts to specialize in the drywall area.
Okay.
Is that if I'm reading that correctly?
That was my ex-husband.
That was. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought okay.
Which was great. Which is great experience.
Did he work for your dad?
No, he did not.
Okay, that's probably good.
We ran our own business, but he was great. That also taught me things about how to price things, how to gauge things, how to speak to people, to understand things, because sometimes you walk into a home and you see a strip of drywall, coming apart. Oh, well, that's not really the drywall. That's the tape for the seam, and that's an easy patch. So you know how to have conversations,
right?
And it's only like a $200 patch.
Well, how did that experience, and obviously growing up with Dad in the general construction because I don't know what the number is. I would guess it's at least 40-50% of the sales right now are new construction, because that's where most of the inventory is at, in the desirable areas where people want to, here in Northeast Florida. How has that enabled you to have the confidence going in there? Because I'm not I want to say pre-listing. I'm going to confuse myself. I am a advocate for having home inspections on these new constructions.
100%.
Yeah.
So there's different types of new construction. We have our larger corporate new construction, like the D.R. Hortons, the KB Homes. Those are all great. I highly recommend a home inspection with those types of new constructions. And then you have your custom builders, your custom spec builders, different things like that. And I recommend to ask a builder, if you're looking into custom building, ask them if they have a foreman. Ask them who's on the job site, cleaning up the job site. Who's on the job site, making sure that the workers are doing what needs to be done. Now I know. So
you're digging. Go explain why, and what's the importance of that person, and what are you going to get out of that?
So I've been on a couple different construction sites. Chris Gazy's one of the builders I used to sell homes for. He had a foreman, and the foreman was just on top of everything, on top of everybody, on top of everything. If he seen somebody doing something wrong, he was on it. He made sure the job site looked nice and clean. And you can always tell when there's a foreman on the site. And so I just always say, ask the builder if they have a foreman. Now, some builders do have foremans for different, for the roof. No, there's a foreman for the roofing aspect. There's a foreman for this. So these are some questions you want to ask.
But just generally, who's in charge of the entire project?
Correct.
Because sometimes...
And how are they managing
Sometimes the custom builder himself, Johnny Builds Good Houses, Jones, is not always there.
Right, correct. And this is why how do you know things are getting done right? Well, we have, the county comes in and they do, permits and make sure that everything is fine. Okay, that's great, but who is managing your site?
Right.
And you can always tell job sites to job sites to see if somebody's really managing it.
Because the county is not a quality control.
Nope.
They're going in and making sure it was installed correctly, and obviously it's government, so there's some, minimal level that you have to achieve. They're not going to put that bar too high, unless maybe it's a safety thing or, something the bar might be a little bit higher, but it's not going to be necessarily the quality control that you're wanting for your customer.
Correct. Yeah. And these are important questions to ask. And, sometimes they could be an excellent builder, excellent. It can be excellent construction, but we still recommend a home inspection.
Yeah.
Doesn't matter the age.
I always like facts tell, stories sell. That's one of my favorite sayings.
Yes.
With your experience, and I'll kind of put you on the spot because I didn't prep you for this particular question, but I'm sure if you've sold enough new construction in anywhere, but here in Northeast Florida, you'll give us a little story that will kind of set in for those who are listening of why you should have that home inspector on that track home that, they're just throwing it up as fast as they can.
Right. So again, it goes back to who's watching, who's managing things, who's making sure things are done. And we're all human. Right. At the end of the day, we're all human. It doesn't matter how many times a day you build a home, who's managing it, who's doing what. It's just important to CYA and just check the work. And that's just, a learning curve and a learning experience as well. It's something important to do.
Well, so I want to, can you think of, and if you can't think of something right now, maybe we'll come to you, just a situation that you've had. Yeah.
Sure. Give me a roof leak on a brand new construction, things like that. And it wasn't that the roof was actually leaking. It's just that they didn't have things connected properly. It's little things like that. I mean, plumbing can leak if something's not connected correctly. These homes haven't been lived in before. They're brand new construction. Right. And that's the beautiful thing about buying a used home. You already know what's wrong with it.
It's been seasoned a little bit.
Exactly. Exactly. So I'm trying to think of one that really stands out, but it's not.
Well, it happens. You need someone to get up on that roof. Right. I've heard stories. I've had Austin Gray on, and where they're pre-slab, they're putting the plumbing in where what's going to be the plumbing that's going to be in the slab, and where the toilet and the sink are not actually at the proper distance because the toilet and sink aren't there yet. And you go in and measure it, and it's like, this ain't going to work. And then they're in there after they pour the slab, having to chop up the slab to move the plumbing over. And now here's, you're hoping your slab has the integrity of the slab hasn't been altered. Correct. When you do that.
Right. Exactly.
So, yeah.
Exactly.
It happens every day. I highly suggest. Now the builders fight you guys on that, don't they?
A
little bit.
Sometimes, lately it seems like the builders really want to work with people.
Isn't it amazing? 21, really they didn't even want to see your face.
Man, it really is. Oh, now there's bonus. It's a really good time for buyers to buy new construction. There's a lot of bonuses. There's a lot of features. But again, just have somebody representing you and looking out for your best interest as well.
So anyone listening, and I think speaking to new agents, they need. That might be listening. They need to reach out to someone like you. Right. You've seen it. You have previous experience, obviously, in construction. Right. If they want to, get some, sit down and have coffee with you, because the worst thing you want to do.
Coffee.
I had a situation I was privy to where they did not put the air conditioning drain hose in the slab. So the house is now built, and they realized. So what they did is they took it up and went up to the second floor, then went out, and then had to come out through the second. So now on the side of the house you have this thing.
Okay, MacGyver.
But how do you get the water up to the second floor and over and out? They had to put a pump in. Well, there's a failure point. Yeah. You're using gravity. Right. That's not going to fail in the way it should be done. Now they're putting a pump in there. Yeah. Failure. So but if we had a home inspector, a company checking those stages, 100%. Hopefully they would have caught something.
And I would get a highly professional home inspector who has dealt with new construction, because they know what to look for, the things and mistakes that people make. Yeah. And depending on the different builder, you can gauge those things.
Yeah. Those jobs for those, I don't know, what are the builders called? Their site guys. Those are tough, where they're bouncing around. They got numerous houses going on. Right. They got contractors going over it. And, they're not necessarily the most experienced. I've seen some very young guys out there, low 20s, running a subdivision. Right. And so what is their quality? Right. What do they expect? And then they're challenged, obviously, with the quality of contractors that are coming in.
So if anybody's hearing this, we need more laborers.
Yeah, need more quality labor, but you need to have the person on your team, an agent like yourself, and then 100%. Who's obviously recommending a home inspector to go through those stages.
Just because it's new construction doesn't mean it's perfect.
Yep, exactly.
Just because it's new construction, that means nothing.
So what brought you to Jax?
Oh, what brought me to Jax? We were in Pennsylvania. 2009, 2010 is when the housing market crashed, and it was a cold winter. It was sky high prices, and a lot of the homes that we lived in Pennsylvania have oil. They're ran by oil, okay? And oil prices just skyrocketed, and we're like, hey, we want something different, and so we decided to come down to Florida.
Because the construction business, I don't think many people realize, I've mentioned it several times in 200 episodes, but when we had the collapse in 7 and 8, the housing construction went below any low point in the previous 50 years. It went below that.
Right.
And it didn't get back to that low until like 11 or 12.
Right. Yeah. So
and that was a low point.
It was. And so I was tired of the cold. I wanted something different. I have family in Florida. I have family in Jacksonville, and this is where we ended up. Yeah. And I love it. I love it.
All right. So there was a little gap in your timeline of your LinkedIn.
Oh, okay.
So you moved to Jax, but it doesn't actually say what year, because you didn't start real estate until 16.
Yes, right? Correct.
So did you pick up something, or raising kids, or what are you?
I was raising kids, and I was doing I was serving tables at the same time, which was flexible for my schedule. However, I didn't want to do it forever. I didn't want, no offense to anyone, I didn't want to be the 70-year-old.
Yeah, that's tough work.
I didn't want to be a 70-year-old still working at the Waffle House. I was tired of smelling like a restaurant. I was tired of running around, and I said, I can give excellent service doing something else.
I always, when someone says they worked in a restaurant, I always think of Howard Flashin over at Round Table. Howard, if you're listening, one of these people, tell Howard I mentioned him on the show. But Howard still has on his LinkedIn, I forget what restaurant he worked at, but he still has on his LinkedIn his time working in the restaurant, because everyone that's come out of that, CC Underwood's another one. I'm just thinking of people who've told me they've worked in restaurants. I've worked in, I've washed dishes, I've bussed tables, I've waited tables.
It's a tough industry.
Yeah, you haven't, I don't think you've really
lived.
Yes.
Or worked.
Yeah, unless you've worked somewhere, some level in a restaurant.
Yeah, and it's a great, for me, it's in the restaurant, in the service industry, only the strong survive. Only the strong can handle it, and you have to have a serious, go-getter mindset if you're going to make money in the service industry, because there are some professional restaurants out there where you can make a career out of serving tables. Right. But that's not a career path I wanted to follow. Right. But it prepared me for, hey, fight or flight. Because real estate is not an easy industry. Yeah. It is not easy at all. And I think sometimes social media and the media over sensationalize and glamorize what we do as realtors.
100%. 100%. Yeah. 100%. I've mentioned it again, something that I mention all the time. I'm going to keep mentioning it. Well, one, I think every agent should have a notebook that they actually chart, just like an attorney does. Sally called me at 8:45 in the evening, talked about how her and her husband have a problem with, because you guys are counseling, whether it's marriage counseling or pulling people off the ceiling. Obviously sometimes negotiations can go on for days, if not weeks.
I've negotiated contracts for a month before getting a home under contract, just because some buyers are slow and steady. Yep.
People don't understand all that time, and the importance of taking that call at 8 o'clock.
Right. They don't. Yeah. They don't, because a deal could be falling apart.
Yeah. You got somebody who's going to be losing sleep and stressed out, and who knows, they might do something stupid. Right. Like call the next morning, say cancel the deal, and never return another phone call. Right. You don't want that. You don't want people to get to those extremes.
No, you don't. And a lot of it's just having communication with the buyer or with the seller, really understanding who they are, what makes them tick, what's going on, why do you feel this way, And just having like you said, I'm a therapist sometimes.
Yeah.
I really am. So
I don't think the general public, especially some of these people that are putting some of the stuff out here with the NAR settlement and stuff, and I think they've tried to devalue agents. So
they really have.
I think it's important for agents just to come right back.
Right.
Now, something I picked up the other day was an article. I don't think many people picked it up. I'm trying to remember the gentleman's name. He does a lot of social media reels. Something James. James is in his name. But I guess in Massachusetts,
okay,
their MLS, I think it's called PIP or something like that.
Nice.
Yeah. They are actually challenging the DOJ and saying, hey, we think it's a freedom of speech to post the commissions on the MLS.
Oh, wow.
So their lawyers are actually taking it up, and I hope some other states join in.
Right.
Because I don't know anyone who says, hey, transparency is taking it off so no one can see it. What?
Yeah.
That's our bureaucracies right now.
You know, again, it's an extreme, right? So there's been some extreme unethical things happening within the industry, and it had to come to an end. However, now we've like gone to a complete extreme, and now we're all like, so it's just finding the fine balance and holding folks accountable, you know, for ethics violations.
How are you in? I don't know how often you know, because some agents never go in the office. I mean,
I go in almost every day.
You like to go in. How is the atmosphere of in Watson in the office with your particular office, your leadership?
Sure.
Because obviously some people are, you're having to pull some agents off the ceiling with this whole the buyer doing a buyer's agreement and so forth. They're not used to that, or they're a little nervous. It's new. How are you guys handling it?
Well, you know, I always look to the examples, right? So Jan Shields is a top producing agent in our office, and my gosh, she's cranking out numbers, but she's been selling real estate since 1984. Okay? You want to talk about extremes and changes. You know, some of the top producing agents have lived through that.
Right.
Okay? So it's all about adaptability and having a real positive attitude and, you know, not allowing fear to overtake you. So that's just my opinion.
Have you started doing the buyer's agreement yet?
Yes, I have.
Okay. So
yes.
What is your, just to kind of share some best practices, were you doing it before?
No, I wasn't.
Not consistently.
Not consistently, no. But with my sellers, you know, I tell them everything is negotiable, including commission. However, I always shed light for the sellers. You need to understand that you're looking at a buyer who's looking to purchase a $500,000 property with a 20% down payment on top of 4% in closing costs. Now they have to pay another 3% for their agent's commission, where your total sales and your total closing cost is only going to be 7 to 8%.
Right.
Help the buyer out. Help them out.
Well, really.
And technically, the buyer is paying for it because they are assuming the debt.
Yeah. That's what they're paying for the house. That's what I don't. I know it's hard for some people to get their arms around that.
Right.
But the buyer's always been paying for it. It's just been in the price.
Correct.
Because if the buyer doesn't have representation, the first thing they're would be asking for is to lower my price 3%.
And where the ethical violation or where the problem is coming in is that selling agents or realtors were not, allowing or disclosing to sellers that commission is negotiable. Hey, 3% to the buyer's agent, 3% to the listing agent. The buyers can pay for that.
I don't know an industry that actually broadcasts. You go into the car dealership, do they broadcast, hey, here's our price, but negotiate with us?
Right.
I mean, they don't start negotiating until you say no.
Yeah. Well, and some of it depends on the seller's circumstances too. So, it's an individualized, basis. Everything depends on what the seller's needs are, and it really depends on the buyer's needs too.
How important is it right now, I think, to maintain sanity in the business for, like I said, when you're going on a listing appointment and you're going through this, hey, this is, you get to the point where I'm going to have 5-6% commission. We're going to cut whatever back to the buyer's agent to cover that. And this is why we're doing it. Because I think that this is why I think has been kind of the part that we have kind of brushed over. Everyone assumes that our consumers know what we're doing.
Exactly.
When there's so much that even as a lender, as a real estate, there's so much we do below the waterline that they never see.
Yeah.
And
they don't, for sure. They don't.
How important is for that listing agent, again, to take that time and of course, obviously add value to themselves, but take some time to explain to people, this is what's going on.
Show them the numbers.
Yeah.
Show them the numbers. Show them where they can find a calculator with their closing costs. Show them the numbers. Help them see it too. Yeah. And then we also help them try to see the buyer's perspective as well. So it's kind of like the whole idea is to make the transaction close, and right now sellers are really having a hard time adjusting with the industry. It wasn't what it was 2 years ago. We're asking $25,000 to $50,000 over our, list price. So, you have to kind of prepare sellers. Hey, your home might sit on the market for 6 to 9 months. Guess what, guys? This is normal. This is a normal market. Yeah. Going under contract in 24 hours and having a supply of only 2,300 homes in the MLS, this is unbalanced, extremely unbalanced. Yeah. So it's all about bringing balance back in. And once the balance is here, people are like, but it's not even about that. It's just a matter of just doing the work consistently every day.
For an agent out, maybe new, maybe struggling, maybe haven't done a lot of listing appointments, I have found that all the top agents like yourself, have no problem whether to tag along or sit down and do a walk through, but like, what are these value points? If you don't know what the value points are because you haven't done enough listings, you're just not thinking of all the things that you may know all the things, but what are the important things? How are you going to list? Are you going to take professional photos? Who's paying for those things? And you need to actually go down and itemize these things and like you said, show them, where is all this money going to?
Exactly, 100%. So it's putting together a really pristine listing package. It includes comparables. It includes how you're going to market. It includes everything. So I'm not going to reveal some of my secrets.
Well, I don't think anything's totally secret. There's things, I think you could, it's like right now, what every class you go to, right, is video, right? You should be doing video. How many people are really actually doing it? I can tell you, even the best agents that I've had on, I go on their YouTube, there is nothing there. Yeah. There's a couple handful of videos they may have done 6 months, 6 years ago.
Okay, videos as far as
just whether it's if you're a social media thing, but obviously I think I always go back to George Guerrera. If you're from Miami, George is treasurer right now at Florida Realtor. He's been president of the Miami board. He when I asked him what is 3 things that real estate agents need to be doing, he said video.
And I remember that when I first started in the industry, I remember one of my broker and now mentor, he was like, you got to get videos, get videos. And I'll walk around and people are like, we love watching your videos. And I'm like, it's just something simple and fun I do. You know? But people absolutely love it.
We have a lot of customers that are coming from out of state.
Yes.
Where do you think they're actually, you're not old enough you haven't been in the business long enough to remember. I do remember back in the day, my dad dabbled in real estate at one time, but when they actually had to wait for the notebook to come out, right? They updated the notebook in the office of what the listings were.
And there was only a few of them.
Yeah.
There was only a few.
And you were only looking at this picture and this address and it said, hey, it's 3-bedroom, 2-bath and so many square feet. Or hopefully it was maybe on a lake or on the water, whatever. You just got those. And then, so you had to actually go out and look at it.
Right.
Most of these people are looking at the house numerous times on the video.
Right.
And I think, would you agree? Now, you've been at Watson for a while, but is it Cassandra or is it Watson that you get most of your business from?
Oh, man. So I would say it's Cassandra.
Yeah.
100%. Watson's just there to give me the tools to do it, and they support their realtors. At the end of the day, agents need to understand your broker can't feed you. Only you can feed you.
Yeah.
Your broker can't always give you leads. If somebody's tempting you with leads, you better know how to get your own leads. They cannot feed you. They should teach you how to fish. so you can feed yourself.
Yeah, well, exactly. And I think these places that are more lead generation up front, generally a new agent coming on, that might be a great way to get their business started.
Right, exactly.
A little faster, type thing. I was trying to think where I was going with my thought there.
It's okay.
We both got off on a slight tangent. Oh, the video, but the importance of them building a relationship with you over the video.
Right. Yeah. I guess they can see kind of my style, what kind of homes I'm doing. I like to say from castles to cottages or cottages to castles. I'll do mobile homes. I'll do luxury listings. We'll do it all. So I think it's just a matter of capturing everything.
Well, we know everyone's headshot is not always up to date. There's been plenty of people I've had on where the only thing I have is their headshot, and I meet them for the first time coming on the show, and I'm like, ooh,
wow.
Okay, is that you? Yeah, all right. I see the resemblance. But the video is to me, scientists will tell you, whether you're watching a video or like face-to-face, your mind doesn't differentiate.
Yeah.
And they're building that relationship, even though you're not, you're talking to a camera, they visualize you're talking to them, and they see your mannerisms. They see, how you present yourself, and you're like, hey, that's someone I can,
Right. I think some of what has helped me is just educating buyers and sellers. Like, there's nothing to hide. You can educate them. At the end of the day, they can make an educated guess, right? You're just there to help them with that. So I always say, hey, this could happen or this could happen. What do you want to do? Because it should be their choice. Yeah. I would say professionally, from my viewpoint, yada, yada, yada.
That's the value add that you give.
That's right. Exactly.
You're putting the videos out to add value.
Yes.
The customer's taking in some of that value, but they're also bonding with you.
Right.
The fact that you are a giving person because you're giving out
Because it's not just them walking into a home. Let's buy the home. No, okay, let's talk about this. Okay, your windows are 20 years old. That's going to be a $15,000.
You got to have credibility to have that conversation.
Oh, yeah. Because the whole thing for me is setting my buyers and my sellers up for success and for repeat business and for referrals. So buyers turn into sellers, sellers turn into investors.
I want to circle back to your top secrets because the reason why I brought up video is because obviously that's what you guys are being told at all these trainings.
Yes.
But how many are actually doing it?
It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah.
It's nerve-wracking.
There's a lot of really great methods because I'm sure you would agree, all of you do your business a little bit different.
Right, 100%.
Some completely different.
Yes.
You can't, there's people that come up and say, hey, Cassandra, I want to know how you do your business. And you give them the, hey, this is what I do all day long, ABC. Right. They're never going to do it exactly the way you do it.
But we call those assholes.
Yeah. All right.
They just ask what to do and then they don't do it.
Well, I mean, completely not do it. But I'm saying they may do some of like they're going to take something, right? If someone's going to move forward with it, they're going to take out what they think is the most valuable.
And that's what I do.
And then do it the way they want to do it.
Right. It's like a recipe.
Yeah.
It's like you get a recipe and then you add your own little flavor and flair and different styles and approaches.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes. Much like that. Yes. That was actually the analogy I had in my head.
There you go.
But so to me, there really is no top secret because you're only, and you're going to disagree with me, but I mean, I think every agent only has an influence to a certain level. You're not massively advertising billboards, TV in Jacksonville, so everybody knows who Cassandra is.
Right.
You have your circle of influence.
Right.
Someone over here, they have a totally different, they may overlap a little bit, but they have a totally another circle.
I think at the end of the day, the secret is being you and being passionate about real estate. You have to be passionate. If you don't have that passion, I don't think it will work for you because passion is what drives you, right? And customers will see that. Yeah. And the secret is just being passionate and showing up and doing the work.
Well, that backs up what like you're saying when you're going into a house and you especially a listing appointment, you say, oh my God, we need to fix this. We need to do that. And you've got to have the conviction or the passion that you're talking about, and then backed up with some credibility.
Right.
The video gives you credibility.
Right.
So you may not know everything about new construction,
Right.
but if you go out and with a home inspector or whatever, whoever might give you this education, and then share that education with people
Right.
on, through video, all of a sudden you're gaining credibility.
Yes.
Because you're talking about it.
I agree. So one of my approaches when dealing with sellers is when we have this conversation, hey, I understand you live in your home. Homes are made to be lived in, okay? But when we're selling a home, this becomes a beauty pageant. And we turn it and like, hey, we got to do this, we got to do that, we got to make this all pretty perfect because you're in competition. You're in competition to sell your home.
In the market's obviously changed in the last, 30.
Buyers recognize that. Buyers recognize a clean home compared to somebody who's just like,
right. That's actually kind of where I'm, because in 21 they made it tolerated, but today,
No.
whether you're doing some staging, or obviously, like you said, you're going in, having some conversations. Share, if you could, go back to one of those experiences you've had where you've had a listing appointment where you had to have one of those kind of heart-to-heart conversations with them and say, hey, if you want to get the best dollar for this, we need to have.
So I was at a listing appointment, and it was a referral. That's how they had called me. And my first thing I ever do was when I walk into a home, show me the home, show me around, show me. And we're walking around and I looked up and I noticed a stain on the ceiling. I was like, is your roof leaking? And she's like, I didn't even know that was there. She's like, we've had multiple agents come through this home and you are the first person to point that out. Wow. And I was like, you got to cover that up. Like the roof, we got to check these things out, you know? And then we sat down, had a conversation. 2 days later, they called me and hired me just because I pointed out a stain on the ceiling. Yeah. Because stains on the ceiling, buyers like, oh my gosh.
Because I think the average agent,
they're afraid.
Yeah, they're afraid. Yeah, where that might lead. Because you may have a leak in the roof. Right. I don't know anyone buying a house right now that's not having a home inspection, especially on an existing home. Right. You'd be considered crazy to be doing that. Yeah. So why would they would be, and you don't know if that customer is going to pay for the cheapy guy who just kind of goes through like an appraiser and just looks, and if he didn't see anything, nothing's wrong. Right. But some of these guys, they have the equipment and the technology. If there's a stain there, there's moisture up there, boom, they're digging deeper. Right. So now you got someone's going to back out of a contract.
Right. Now it's an acknowledging problems, disclose problems, and we can always work around problems.
Do you like pre-listing inspections?
Depending on the home. Depending on the home, and it really depends on the seller's needs. I always recommend it, but sellers are like, well, we'd just rather wait. Okay, that's fine. Just be prepared. Right. Let's just be prepared. So, the choice is yours, but here's what could happen. They could find something massively wrong with the property, which could put a bomb into the deal and the contract's done.
Right. Or it could be just a bunch of little things, that don't cost that much, but they're going to put a bigger value fix on them than some of these things that they could have fixed themselves. Right. And, for pennies on the dollar.
And this is where, like, Mr. Seller, Mrs. Seller, you need to get a contractor out there to have that checked, and you have your prices ready. So if a buyer bounces back and they say this is $20,000 and your contractor's saying it's only $5,000, well, here's our evidence. What evidence do you have to prove? Right. Besides your home inspector, where's the contractor, and this is where the negotiations come in.
Yeah, the negotiation concessions or the actual physical repairs. So you might get less for your home because you didn't spend a few $100 up front. Right. Insurance, have you run into any issues with that?
Oh, insurance companies, we love you. Yeah, we hate you. No, I always recommend during the home inspection period to have a 4-point inspection done. This is how, a lot of insurance company gauge binding an insurance policy or not. So we have our roof, panel box, plumbing, and water heater. Those ages really, really matter. When we're working with sellers right up front, hey, just be prepared. If these things aren't updated in order for the contract to close, in order for you to sell your home, you have to either give a concession, have it fixed, and have it ready to be taken care of, because insurance companies will not play. Yeah. They're not playing anymore.
Well, and you have those marginal buyers, first-time home buyers, or just someone who's just tight on their debt ratio, and all of a sudden the insurance comes back and it's twice as much. We didn't have that problem 3 years ago. No. But in the last, 24, 36 months, as insurance issues come up, we're seeing some crazy.
This is why we have a 4-point inspection that the insurance company has on file. Because 9 times out of 10, when you have that on file, they won't mess with you because they know they can't. Because here, my inspector, here's the evidence. What are you guys trying to say?
Yeah.
I mean, even with roofs that are 5 years old now, like they're like, your roof needs to be replaced. Well, where's your 4-point inspection? Why didn't somebody like?
Well, they should be doing wind mitigation and 4-point. I know some of the better home inspectors are just doing them.
Yeah,
because they know this is an issue.
And my buyers, I always say, hey, this is what you're paying for. You're going to get an inspection, a 4-point, and a wind mid. Pay for it.
Yeah,
and a WDO.
Yep. 100%. All right, so. You come to Jacksonville.
I come to Jax, yeah.
You're working tables.
I serve in a really nice restaurant.
Okay, well, that's good.
Yeah.
Why real estate?
Why?
How did you get lured into?
Oh, okay. So I was like, all right, you know what? Let's go for this. I started taking my exam, not the exam, but preparing and studying for the real estate exam. And one day I was
what got you there?
What got me there?
Yeah,
I was tired of serving tables, and people were encouraging me, hey, you can do it. We really
Okay, so you had some people coming through the restaurant, or people you knew personally?
Like friends and family. Everybody was really encouraging me to pursue it, And I was like, okay, let's start working on it. And one day I was serving tables, and a woman comes in, and she was like, you need to meet my broker. And I'm like, why? And she's like, you're really detail oriented. You understood everything I told you, and you got it down correctly. And I was like, okay. And I was like, well, I'm in the process of getting my real estate license. She's like, you got to come meet my broker. And I was like, okay. So I went and met Eddie Cintron, who was the broker at Watson Realty Corp Southside at the time. And he was just like, whoa, what do you think you can do? I'm like, I really want to do this. This is something I really want to do. I had to. So.
All right. So you obviously you went over and signed up under him.
Yep, I did.
Did you actually talk to any other brokers?
No, I was like, I felt like he was a mentor. He was encouraging. He was like, okay, well, this is going to be hard because now you're balancing 2 jobs.
Right.
But he gave me a chance. They gave me a chance.
Right. Well, I think Watson gives a lot of people chances.
Right.
but the point I always like to make, I know you haven't listened to any of my shows, but the broker choice is important. You were fortunate.
Yeah.
But now you've been in the business a while, and you know people in the business.
Right.
And how many of them have gone, maybe especially that first one was wrong, and they might have stayed there for years. Some of them got out in 6 months and went to another brokerage because they knew right away, hey, I need to save my business. But how important is that the broker, and not necessarily the broker as the individual, but the culture of the office? Because I think it's important if your broker's not out front, that you have other, like, experienced agents you can rely on, you can get energy from, or just like those basic questions like, hey, how do I put a listing appointment together? Can you walk me through it? Having those people around you.
Yes, it's all, you nailed it. It's 100% important. It's like having mentors, right? So and that's the beautiful thing with Watson Realty Corp is the training. The training aspect was fantastic for me. The broker aspect, he was more of a mentor. But he was also there to help me work the contract and would catch a couple things as well. So you want to make sure you have a mentor. At the end of the day, make sure you have a broker who's in-house. A lot of these agencies, they don't have that. Yeah. They don't have a broker in-house. Now, that works well for somebody with experience, but even with my experience, I still want my broker. I want to be able to call the vice president and have a conversation if I'm having a serious problem. Yeah. And that's the nice thing with Watson is the doors are always open.
Well, would you agree a challenge, especially for new agents, is, these deals, these negotiations over repairs, or the negotiation is a big part of why you get paid what you get paid.
Right.
And everyone's different. So it's not like, hey, go order, I'm going to use this photographer. It's not like checking off the list. The negotiations are very important. And it's when you either win or lose a deal.
Right.
And oftentimes winning that advocate, that client that's going to refer you on and on and on, which is really the win.
Well, the win comes when you've prepared your sellers, you've educated your sellers and buyers, setting realistic expectations, I think is what helps you, with referrals in the future as well. And sometimes sellers don't quite grasp that. So you can kind of butt heads a little bit, but as a realtor, I stand firm on some things, but it's their decision, so you can't, fight that all the time.
But how you present it, and of course,
Yes.
sometimes some people get a little emotional. Sometimes
Right.
you need to like put the phone down, walk away, take a walk around the block, and then come back and let your mind. But to have whether it's a great broker. The
Right.
bounce takes, say, here's the situation. This is what I think we should do. What do you think?
Right.
And get that kind of feedback
Yes.
before you go back to your
Exactly.
clients.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'll do that. Sometimes I'll have a conversation in the mirror with myself. Have a conversation with myself.
Yeah.
And then I'll have a conversation with a broker. I'll have a conversation with other agents who I've been influenced by. I'll talk to other people, and sometimes my administrator, just little conversations can help you work a contract even better. And
Right.
part of it's just learning how not to get too emotional.
Because I think you have to realize it's like, every loan's different because you got a different person.
Yeah.
So you're dealing with people and a different house.
Right.
So it's nothing's cookie cutter and all this things going on. And you have to watch. You haven't seen everything. Even if you sold hundreds of homes,
Right.
you still haven't seen every situation.
Something new every day.
Yeah,
Yeah.
there's another situation comes up, and you got to deal with it to be able to reach out to somebody who's seen 100 other different types of
Right.
deals that may have done or worked with this situation before.
Right. Exactly.
And be able to reach out to those people, and that's getting in that right office is what we're getting to.
Yes,
Yeah.
100%. Right office, right broker. So I was going to say this earlier. There's brokers who have different styles. There's brokers who manage, and they're good at managing. And then there's brokers who are good at influencing, managing, and mentoring. And that's what you want to look for. And some people don't, like my first broker was great. Other people may have not liked them, but it's just what you
It fit for you. That's the important.
Exactly. And don't be afraid to go out there and find it.
All right. So what was the three? Influence, mentoring, and there was a third.
Managing.
Explain influence.
Influence, an example, how they've worked, how they've done it, how they show up to the office, how are they performing, how are they inspiring you through their example.
Should someone be deterred if their broker is actually still producing?
It depends. So I've had brokers who are still producing, not a lot, but it keeps them fresh.
Yeah.
So it should be okay for your broker to work a couple contracts. It keeps them fresh.
Yeah.
Keeps them up to date on the contract, helps them with their negotiation, helps them communicate effectively with you too.
Right.
So I don't think there's anything wrong with a broker who has a couple sales under their belt.
Yeah, no doubt. That's great advice there because I agree with you. There's some brokers out there who don't produce, but they are involved.
Yes.
Whether they're down there, they're teaching.
Right.
They're involved at the board. They're doing the things that they need to be doing, being out front.
Right.
They need to be out in front of their agents, so they're hopefully adding value to you.
Right.
But I think there's just some that just drop back to the management thing, and I think that they're dying at that point.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And you'll know when you run into it. You can tell. And sometimes it's not for them.
Yeah.
Some realtors are not made to be brokers, and some brokers they're amazing, but it's not everybody's calling because you're managing. And if it's more than managing, it's mentoring, because if you want somebody to sell, if you want somebody to be effective, you have to be mentoring.
Yesterday I was over at Amanda Hauser. She owns the First Coast Real Estate School, and she had a group of 7 new agents. And one of the things I shared was obviously some of the conversations that I've had, hundreds of conversations with agents and what they're doing,
Right.
and the importance of taking some time at the beginning of your career because there's lucky ones that you just fell in the right one and everything clicked for you,
really
and yet there's others trying to take the time, and not only you got to sit in front of the broker and listen to them do, but it's as some people say, it's like an interview. It's like two people lying to each other, right? They're telling you about how great their education is, how great their technology is, compared to what, right?
Right.
Everyone has that. Every broker's going to say, but to sit down with actual agents who work in that office and how they do their business, and do you bond with that way they do business?
Right.
Because you may find in his office you got a bunch of people who can just do it on their own, and they don't really need the broker. So they're like, broker, I don't really even call him because I just call my friend who's also been in the business or as successful as I am, and they never. So you find out that broker really isn't. Might not be that person.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
You need.
Exactly.
Now, were you ever on a team?
I think, yeah, once. I started.
You started on a
yes,
team.
and yes, it was the lady who found me at the restaurant, or I found her, however you want to.
Okay.
And I just remember my broker's like, you can do it. Just go for it. Just go and do it yourself. And I finally was like, you know what? I'm just going to go take the step of faith and
so
do
it was just you kind of mentoring under her as a team?
Yes,
Getting
she
it started?
really educated me with how to like work the contract, how to understand the contract, different things. It just wasn't for me. I wanted to go off and do my thing. I didn't want to have to.
Well, did she have like a full-fledged, I mean,
no.
You know, it was, you just, but I mean, how important though, you think for a new agent getting in the business today to kind of shadow someone like you're talking about, you see what an actual day in the life of a real estate agent is.
You know, I think shadowing is fantastic for a lot of agents, and the broker should also be able to help you with that as well. I've had a couple realtors reach out to me who've been selling real estate for 2 years and they had nothing. And I was like, come on, let's hang out. Let's go to lunch. Let's talk. Let's do things.
Yeah.
So, you know, there was folks there for me. I don't mind being there for anybody. I love to inspire. I love to help. This is the way I do things. You know, find you though. Find who you are.
Well, on your social media, I do see a little bit of your co-realtor socialization.
Yeah.
How important is that, do you think, in your it's a fun part, and people always say, you know, like we mentioned the HGTV, at the beginning of the show, it can be fun going out, but you are doing business as well.
Right. You're building relationships.
You're building relationships, maybe hearing some stories that, you know, help you in your next transaction that might come up. You know, how important you think is for agents to have a little bit of that in there?
Well, we're competition, but we're not competitors, right? So, you know, you need to respect everyone in the industry, because all it takes is one bad experience and everyone will find out. I promise you, you know, so we have to respect each other's as agents. You know, we try not to be drama, and, you know, you got to respect everybody and really try to build a relationship with everybody, because it'll always come back to you tenfold. I'm the same way, but I'm really about, like, you know, I'll go out there and get it. You know, and some of those get-togethers with you know, other agents, it's fun, but my schedule is filled with a lot of other things as well, because I do have children.
Yeah. The opportunities come up.
Awesome.
Lunch and learns are, you know, some you know, when there's some slower times to jump out.
Yes.
Even if it's just going over to Landmark, which is a great training tomorrow. Those listening live, there's a great training tomorrow. A speaker tomorrow. There's an opportunity to socialize a little bit. Right there, and shake hands, say hi to some of these people who may be on the other side of transactions, but you never actually saw their, you know, you know.
I mean, I don't think, you know, I've had some really tough agents in the past, and, you know, you meet them and you're like, like you really want to try to avoid it.
What do you think it is in their mindset, and some when you say tough agent, I'm assuming, and you can clarify, but I have seen this. Because my wife's an agent, so I've seen where the agent on the other side is just being extremely difficult.
Yeah.
Not necessarily their client, but actually the agent themselves is being really difficult and not saying, "Hey, I got a difficult client, help me out." Because the goal is we got a seller and we got someone who wants to buy that house.
Right.
How can we get it to closing?
And I think sometimes they think that this is their specialty with negotiation. Oh, sweetheart, it does not work like that. Like, you know, you can't operate like that. You have to really kind of explain, hey, I have a difficult seller, so I apologize, but this is this is what's happening.
Right.
Or I have a difficult buyer, or I have a scared buyer. I have this, you know, it's just.
Because the reality is, as an agent, those listening in here, if you are one of those agents, hopefully I don't have any listeners like that, but maybe I do. If you're one of those difficult agents, stop getting so emotional about it.
Yeah.
And you're not giving up anything. What you're doing is you're Cassandra's on the other side. You're talking back and forth, and maybe your seller or whatever has to give a little bit. They're going to come up a little bit, that sort of thing. The bottom line is both people sign off at the end,
right?
The buyer and seller, to come to an agreement, and it's on them. You just
You're there to communicate. You're basically there to communicate. But I know what it's like to work with some really complicated buyers and sellers. So I always tell agents, hey, I am sorry if I'm coming across a certain way, but this person just, And they're like, oh, I'm so sorry. And then it turns into like, hey, we can understand that because we've all experienced that. How can we make this better so we can get the dang deal closed? Because at the end of the day, that's the purpose.
You come across as a person who's very upfront and just straight.
Yes, I try to be. I've learned that you have to be.
Do you, obviously, well, that's your personality.
Yeah.
That's my personality. You're from Pennsylvania. I was born in New York, grew up in Massachusetts.
Northern thing.
Yeah, it's
that attitude thing.
But some of our Southern friends, they kind of can take offense to it. They want a little like sugar added to it. I don't know.
And I've had to learn how to kind of be like that. But the beautiful thing is even the Southern friends, if they're professionals on the other, they know how to, they have to be upfront too.
Right.
Sometimes there's no sugar coating anything.
Well, it's business. It's not personal. When you start making the personal thing, like their tone and the voice, and I have a history of being misunderstood.
Yes.
And it's generally a lot of things that I didn't even say.
Yeah, right.
More than things I actually said.
Yeah, I get it.
People get that emotional, but it's business. And when someone hires you, you're hired to be their bulldog. You're hired to do a job.
Yeah,
and
for sure.
And they All right. So you get started. You're this lady who introduced you to the broker.
Yes.
You work with her a little bit.
Right.
And then realize it was just a few months, and then the broker's like, hey, you're just your own solo agent type of thing.
Pretty much.
So what were some of your what did you pick up from her? And then what were, for those new agents that might be listening, or even someone struggling right now who might be in the business 3 years, but it feels like their first year, what were some of the challenges you had, and then how did you overcome them?
So to answer, your question about
her.
Yeah. So that was great. I learned all about like how to operate the systems for DocuSigns and things like that. I understood the contract. She was really great at explaining things, communicating things. She taught me a lot of things. I just wanted to be on my own. Mm-hmm. I wanted to do things.
Well, you still need that. You want to learn those things.
Yes.
Now, I did have Angela Walker, who was a long-time Watson agent for years until she recently moved. When she moved now, and obviously all those things change.
Yeah.
After being with Watson for 20-some years, she's like, I just want to hire a transaction coordinator. I don't have time to learn those things now. That's where she felt because 20-some years where she's at in her life and so forth, she didn't want to have to spend all that. But as a new agent, you kind of need to know how those things work behind the scenes.
Even as a seasoned agent, transaction coordinators are great, but you need to know that contract. You need to understand.
Well, I didn't say the contract. I'm talking about the CRM.
CRMs.
Those kind of the back office software.
Yes, I can see where we need those as well. But I'd like to learn the systems just because it just makes you, I think it does something to your brain, learning new things. And for agents who are really struggling right now, oh gosh, you just got to get out there and go get it. You really do. You have to mailers, flyers, door hangers, open houses, your COI, doing the work. You have to do the work, and you cannot be a secret agent. You have to be in people's faces. You have to be out at meetings. You have to go and meet people.
You've gone, you went through the full cycle, right? You started in 16, obviously 19, 20, 21, it was gangbusters. There's a bunch of agents that started during that time.
Right.
Obviously at the different seasons over the nearly almost 7 years you've been in the business now, you've doing stuff a little differently. What you didn't even have time in 21 to do.
Right.
What are some things you're doing now in summer of 24 that maybe you didn't have time to do, really weren't doing a lot of now, but like you said, getting back to the basics, getting out there and doing it.
Right.
What are some of those getting out there and doing it?
Open houses, for sure. Open houses is a big thing because back in 2021,
as soon as you stuck the sign in the yard,
like, oh my gosh, done. And now you really have to focus on marketing, good MLS descriptions, professional photography, things like that. Somebody's calling me, so I'm going to just do that right there. And that. I mean, I was always doing that. I was always that that person, but now I have to be really, really specific, really, really detailed, really, prepare the home to market.
How preparing the home to market, that has beyond the sale effects. Now you've been doing it 7 years. You've been around. You're interacting with agents. You're considered a seasoned agent. You guys are having these conversations. The importance of doing it right, having those professional photos, because they're up there forever. And that is, your name's on them.
Yeah. And what's fun is when you see, listings where they have a Christmas tree and it's still June. Like, come on, check your listings. Like, every day I'm like trying to figure out, can I do something different? Is there something I can change with this listing? Is there something that I'm missing? Pull other agents in. So it's just a matter of really working your business. You really got to take care. Just, you don't slap a home up and that's it. You have really just constantly following up with it. Follow up, follow up, follow up. We have a saying, the fortune's in the follow up.
Yeah. But how many enter the business, and you may have been like this at the beginning or maybe didn't realize it, but now I'm sure you do. You have to look at every house that you're representing as not only, yes, that 30 or 45 days and you close, or if it's listed, whatever the period of time that house, you're active at that house. But the things that you do with it is your reputation.
It's my portfolio.
Yeah, for future ongoing business for years and years and years.
Right, and I don't think some agents realize that. A lot of realtors don't realize that. But again, there's different styles, there's different types, and there's different types of sellers who, I've heard some sellers say they don't like the professional pictures because it's not realistic. Oh, I never thought of that. I never thought.
Not realistic?
I never thought of that. Like, who thinks like that? Like, no, like, I didn't think like that. But buyers don't see it like that. So, yes, professional pictures, 100%. I know. They're out there.
My answer to them is, what do you care? You're leaving.
I know.
We're not trying to sell it to you.
I've heard realtors say this, and I think that they've heard that from realtors who were just cheap. Well, because, you have to invest into your listings.
When you're going into that, and this is a question I've never asked before, but I think it's important now with the NAR settlement and so forth, and actually on the subject that we're talking about, is when you have that seller,
right?
Like I said, you're everything's negotiable.
Yeah.
When they start to have that,
right, the
importance right now
is showing my value,
showing your value. But being prepared for that. Now, not firing right back, but obviously letting, because a lot of times people just want to throw it out there to see how you react. Right. If you've been in sales long enough, there are questions people ask just to see how you react. Even if they're not actually thinking that directly, it's subliminally in their head. Yeah. I have to ask a question to let the salesperson know that I'm actually listening. Right. So they throw a question out. Well, do we really need to do that? Or, well, can't you do better on your price? And how important is to practice this, maybe with other agents, role playing, that sort of thing. So when you are in front of a customer, how your whole presence comes back with a distinct answer, and then you're moving on. Right.
Well, we just explained what you're paying me to do and what you're paying the buyer's agent to do, and this is what I'm going to do, and this is what the buyer's agent is going to do. Yeah. And we can always negotiate price and things like that if we need to, but pay your agent. If you want to list your home, you stick that for sale sign and have fun at it. And 9 times out of 10, you will end up hiring somebody if you want to do a for sale by owner, because it is a lot of work.
Yeah. Yeah, they have no idea all that's interacted and the interactions that go back and forth. And not only just knowing, I try to keep both sides, both agents. I don't necessarily tell the listing agent what my borrower details are going, but obviously keeping them informed. If you don't have someone representing you, they're not going to call you, the seller, and say, oh yeah, by the way, the buyer is in this, this is a situation that we're working through and we'll have it resolved. You want to tell the agent that so they can filter it, but the agent knows what's going on and everyone's handling. You don't get that when you don't have an agent.
No, and they don't realize setting up appointments, having conversations, just having certain forms and disclosures signed. A lot of and they have a separate job, so they don't understand how real estate works. Again, social media and the media has over sensationalized what we do for a living. Okay, we don't all drive Porsches. We all don't dress up in Gucci and Armani. A lot of us wear sneakers and jeans, and we're out pounding the pavement every single day.
And sometimes you're cleaning toilets and cleaning houses right before an open house.
100%, totally. And a lot of agents need to get the selling sunset image out of their mind, because no, this is boots on the ground, pounding the pavement, and
there's good money. If you're willing to put at the end of the day, you can definitely treat yourself to a nice dinner if you're putting the work in.
Sure, but you got to put the work in. This isn't as easy as folks think. Now, granted, there are those stories where somebody gets into the industry and man, they're making millions of dollars. Okay, good for you, but no, it's not. It's not how everybody is.
Yeah. The statistics of 80% dropping out before they even renew. Who knows when they dropped out? They might have dropped out in the first 3 months, but the statistic doesn't come around until the renewals don't happen.
Well, and a lot of folks are like, well, I can sell. Okay, no. It's not about selling. You have to be multifaceted. You have to know how to communicate. You have to know how to negotiate. You have to know how to market. You have to know how to talk to people. You have to know how to do all sorts of things. You have to know how to be a therapist. You have to know how to be a firefighter. You have to know how to be a woman's, you're going to be putting out fires. You have to understand how mortgages work. You have to understand everything. It's one of the most multifaceted personalities.
Right. And a lot of it's not actually, there's no hey, go to a classroom and after 40 hours, you're going to know all this.
Yeah,
you actually have to, it's learning by every pitch that's thrown at you.
Right.
Going to every opportunity that you can, these lunch and learns where a lender or insurance company or whatever is giving information, going to NEFAR, that sort of thing, and getting these things over time. And you just got to deal with the curveballs that are thrown at you, but hopefully you surround yourself with key people.
Yes, that's right.
The one thing you didn't mention in that great list that you just rattled off there, because you said it's you can sell. Sales has something to do with it. And I think sales negotiation that some depending on what they've been selling or whatever. There's things a lot of the things that you mentioned.
Yes.
But I think one of the things a lot of salespeople don't necessarily have to have is the relationship part. Now we mentioned having relationships with other real estate agents briefly earlier, but as a real estate agent, you want to be seen as the resource in the community, the concierge. You're going to have just because you helped them buy the home, how are you going to make that into future sales? How are you going to get referrals for them? You have to have a relationship with them, because there's a lot of transaction going on, and you may be really good at that, but then the closing happens. Now what do you do next? What are some of the things that you would recommend? Some of the things that maybe you do or like to do in the relationship with your customers?
Yeah, sure. So every customer is different, right? And you have to understand that. But at the end of the day, you can't lose who you are as well just because you need to coddle somebody's feelings. So you also have to learn how to be gentle with presenting certain things.
Empathetic, I think is the word.
Empathetic, yes. That's a very good word. Are you dealing with a shark? Numbers, and they'll
the Northrop Grumman engineer.
Ooh, and then are you dealing with somebody who's just like, hey, whatever you need, who doesn't clean out the house right before closing? They're just go with the flow. And then you have somebody who will, a lot of my foreigners are like this, my foreign customers, they'll ask you question after question after question after question, and you have to know how to answer these questions so they
stay cool after the third or fourth one in a row.
And it's not because they're any certain way, it's because they need to understand, because we have a language barrier. So that's something that people need to keep in mind. Like, everybody has different types of communication styles, and you have to understand different styles, and then learn how to work with that person while still maintaining your professionalism and empathizing with that person. Yes.
No, I think you're 100% right with our foreign-born friends.
Yes.
They have questions, but that's an opportunity to win.
It is.
Because if you're patient with them and you answer their questions, you get back to them in a reasonable period of time, they appreciate that service.
Sure. And let me make sure I understand what you're saying. We always ask is this what you're saying? No, I mean it. You have to. Good
point.
You always have to, and I do that with anybody. Like, is this, so what you're saying is this? No, I'm saying, I gotcha. So it's like sometimes, it might frustrate people, but when you clarify a question, it shows that you're listening.
Yeah.
So it's being
and
a
that
good
you
listener.
care.
It's 100%.
That you care, that you want, you're solving their
right.
concern.
Exactly.
Yeah.
100%. So, again, we're not just salespeople. We're not just salespeople.
Almost 7 years now.
Yeah.
You had somewhat of a little bit of a mentorship at the beginning.
Sure.
You call it that. Have you advanced? Have you hired a coach at any time? You've thought about hiring a coach?
No,
never
no.
really.
I read a lot. I do some seminars and things like that. I do a lot of reading that helps. But no, I've never hired a mentor.
What do you like? When you say reading, I imagine this kind of not necessarily somewhat industry or sales specific type stuff.
More like subconsciousness, tapping into what we
personal development.
Yes, what we tell ourselves, what we think. What we think manifests to become true. Self affirmations. And a big one was ninja selling. That's a good one.
I've heard that recommended numerous times.
That's hands down. I need to do a refresher on that one. That was great,
right?
For sure.
What was it specifically about ninja selling that some of the things that you've taken from that?
They've combined the manifestation aspect, the super consciousness understanding of, hey, this up here can bring about anything that you want, and then they also show you how to fine tune that into your business. Hey, we have a buyer sheet, we have a seller sheet, we have a warm sheet, we have a hot sheet. These types of things. We always follow up. We're looking for our buyers. We're looking for the sellers for the buyers. Like there's a lot that goes into it. Your CRM, work on your CRM, 20 appointments in a week, these types of things. So
do you, in advice for agents that's out there that may not be thriving, at least in their eyes, or again, any new agents, I mean, are you a time blocker? Are you?
I try.
What do you think has been your, giving you the consistency of success? Some of the practices you try to do, whether it's daily or weekly or monthly, things that you're doing.
Right. So my morning routine, hands down, that's my thing. My morning routine, I wake up, drink my cup of coffee, I do my affirmations, I do my reading, I get up, I go for a walk, I work out, I come back, I get ready, and I go to work. And I do that all before 9 o'clock.
And you like going into the office?
I love going into the office.
You mentioned
energy.
The office triggered a thought because you mentioned earlier about Watson had great education.
Sure.
Now Watson has many offices.
They do.
The broker, I imagine, has some sort of influence of what information, or does Watson offer a lot of stuff online that anyone can access?
Yeah, I mean, you can go to any office.
Right.
I was just in Ormond Beach, and I went down and wrote a contract at the Ormond office.
Right. No, I'm talking from the standpoint of the. There's the physical education where you actually, hey guys, we're having someone come in and speak. The broker has control over that.
Yes, they do. They should be open to like your opinions of who can we have come speak
and add value.
Right.
Do you like I assume they have a weekly sales meeting?
They do every other week, every Tuesday.
And you go to those?
Sometimes. Yes, sometimes.
Because I imagine as an experienced agent, that's the one challenge. We know there's brokers in town that cater towards more experienced agents. I'm sure you've gotten phone calls from them.
Yes.
And then Watson is notorious. Keller Williams notorious because they have a lot of teams for new agents.
Right.
And the challenge of having a sales meeting with a lot of newbies in it.
Yes.
Versus sales meeting with experienced people in what you can or what you're able to discuss.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Where do you, as an experienced agent now, like I said, you're not going to every sales meeting because some of those sales meetings are, they're talking to the new agents and trying to get them going and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
But as an experienced agent, where are you finding more of your, if we want to call it education, that's a very broad term, but expanding your horizons on real estate?
Expanding my horizons on real estate definitely comes from, taking other classes. Landmark offers training. Watson always offers training, talking to the broker about different trainings and things like that. The team meetings, I think, should be like a mixed faceted group of top producing agents, newer agents. So then the newer agents can sit there and learn, and top producing agents can sometimes forget what it was like to sit there and be like, oh my gosh, where's my lead going to come from this week? Like, what am I going to do? And it's just kind of like, I think it helps with the communication aspect if you're working a contract with a less experienced agent as well. And I think sometimes agents with experience, like to kind of overshadow the newer agents and be like, no, instead of trying to take them a little bit under their wing and being like, okay, let's do this. Let's try to work through this. I had one agent, she was like, I remember when you called me constantly and followed up about everything. And I didn't understand it until like my third or fourth transaction. She was like, I am so thankful you taught me about the follow-up because I didn't let the ball drop on something.
Right. Right.
So, yeah.
I think the unique thing about real estate is it's this full life circle.
Yes.
And, a lot of agents drop out, but how important it is, for an experienced agent to pour a little bit or be available for the newer agents, because that newer agent's going to get some deals eventually if they stay in long enough, right?
Yeah.
And if they screw it up, it only devalues the entire industry.
Right.
It's in the experienced agent's best interest to help them have successful reputation.
And one thing I hear from experienced agents, oh, the industry's this and the industry is going to this. And, well, we have the opportunity to change that with every interaction that we have with other agents, through great communication, through understanding each other, through working through each other, especially with the newer agents. Because if an experienced agent just helps with that confidence boost with a newer agent, man, that newer agent's going to feel so good after that deal closes, and they're going to want to go out there and get it again.
I don't think if every experienced agent today worked with every new agent that come in, I don't think it's going to move the needle of the amount of agents that are actively doing the business.
Right.
That it's going to, because I think obviously, like I said, you're not really competition. You're going to go further by collaborating and raising the bar on the value of a real estate agent. That's far more important than any competition. If you're pouring in or you're there, you're only going to add to the quality of the service and reputation of all real estate agents versus actually moving the needle where 80% don't renew after 2 years. Maybe what does that move to 77%? Right. It's not really going to like, oh my God, I have all these other competitors out here because I helped all these new agents. I don't think it's going to do that. No. But I think every transaction that's being done is going to be done at a higher level.
And that's how it should be.
And then the overall reputation.
We hold each other accountable to things, right?
Yeah.
And not all agents or not all realtors are like that. So it's just a matter of, hey, you'll find your flow. You'll find people that you can be like, oh my gosh, hey, and you hug and you love on each other. At the end of the day, people know we're like, hey, we're all busy. We all got lives, so
things happen.
Right.
Do you have anything you'd like to add?
Oh gosh, do I have anything I'd like to add? I mean, so
why should someone choose Cassandra to represent them as a buyer or seller?
Why should someone choose Cassandra? Because I am a go-getter. I'm a professional. I am disciplined, and I am determined, and I effectively communicate with my buyers and sellers.
Good answer. That's your good elevator pitch right there.
I like my 30-second elevator pitch. And one thing I want to say to newer agents is you're planting seeds. You're planting a garden. You're planting. Give it 2 years. Give it 5 years. And I promise you, your business, if you're doing the work, will flourish. It will.
Kevin Wagaman, who's actually speaking tomorrow at Landmark, had him on the last show. And he said when he first started, he spent a lot of time in the education, all those things that you can go to lunch, you can get free lunch everywhere. There's a lender, there's an insurance company, there's somebody giving a free lunch somewhere or breakfast, either or.
Coffee,
you probably could find both if you actually concentrated on it. Yeah. If you actually concentrate. But unfortunately, that's not going to bring you the business. You actually have to get down to it, and like I said, whether it's doing the open houses, banging doors, all the thousands of different there's 1,000 differend ways you can market this business.
There really is. Really is. It's just a matter of, do you have it in you?
Right.
Are you passionate?
Find someone that's doing it and find out what they're doing. Find if you like it. You may not like the way they do it. There's some people that actually do like to bang doors. I mean, it's almost August in Northeast Florida. I don't want to be out there banging doors, but there's people that do it.
Right.
And they're having success. Doesn't mean you have to there's other ways, but find a way and find a mentor that's doing it. And like you said, you've got to do the money producing, or you got to time block those money producing activities every day. Don't get caught up at NEFAR all day and think you've moved your business.
Right. You got to do different things, moving and shaking and trying to meet different people from different aspects, title companies, lenders, all different types of people, lenders especially.
I'm going to finish. This is my last question.
Sure.
How important is it to have a Rolodex of the service providers, and there's a whole list of I'm talking from roofers, the different contractors, all these people that could do repairs, not only lenders and insurance companies. How important is that you need to have a tight group around you that when you call them, they're going to act.
That's right. We have a list, our list of vendors of folks. And, you always got to freshen up that list, because somebody who was good 2 years ago might not handle things.
Or they might have gotten really busy because they are good and they just can't service you as good as they used to.
100%, but it's very, very important. So, meeting new home inspectors, meeting roofers, roofer people will call you day in and day out. Add them to the list. Add it.
Yeah.
Get organized.
Because you never know when that situation comes up and you need a roof replaced.
Yep.
Before or after closing, and this guy can't do it, or this guy's willing to do it before closing and not get his check until closing.
Right.
There's great guys out there like that. You got to find those guys.
Right. 100%.
Yeah.
100%.
Appreciate you coming on today.
Thank you.